Okay. Okay, right, chaps. I'm going to kick it off with some stats. Yeah, as you do. Okay, £5,000 million iTunes digital revenue downloads. So it's massive, massive industry. Okay. There's money to be made, definitely, with record sales, and quite often you feel there's a lot of people saying that you can't make any money off records, but it has taken a massive rise, as you can see from the graph there. I've got a question, which I'm going to fire at Grant, if you don't mind. There's between 7,000 and 15,000 tunes a week being put out on Beatport, right? How do these guys compete with that? How are you competing with that?
It's tough. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not easy. It's not easy out there at the moment. And we were having a little discussion about this walking down it. It's a different market now than it was when we started, or when I started, and Si probably as well started making records. It was, vinyl for a start limited the amount of output that was out there. It limited the amount of products because somebody had to dig into their pockets and invest. You know what I mean? It cost £1,000 roughly to get 1,000 copies of a record out on the street, or it did back then. So someone had to really believe in the record you'd made to put it out there and take a risk on it. Nowadays, there are digital record labels that will just sign anything. They're not paying any advances to the artists, and they'll release 10 to 15 tracks a month, which is crazy because from the artist perspective, you're not getting any promotion because they can't afford to. From the label side of things, it's crazy. You wouldn't. Why would you? If you're putting out 15 records a month, why would you do that? You couldn't afford to promote all those artists. And also, it's a case of just throwing a load of stuff out and just seeing what works. Now, that might be fine for a lot of you guys, and it's certainly fine for a lot of the producers out there because they're just trying to make it. So they just want to get noticed, they want to get recognised. So they're happy to, I want to say the word be exploited, but I suppose it is kind of being exploited in a way, but I suppose everyone benefits in a way as well. But so I would suggest setting up your own label, which is what we're going to be talking about today primarily, is a better option than just trying to sign yourself to another independent, unless you go for somebody that really knows what they're doing. I mean, like you said, you know, if you're talking about 10,000 records going out a week, people don't have big attention spans nowadays. People don't follow music. They don't have the passion for music. Customers, I'm talking about, that they used to. People used to be crazy. Follow labels, follow artists, follow acts, follow bands. It's not so much like that anymore. Now it's a case of, look at my phone, this is brilliant, look, check this out, this is a great track. And they don't really want to know the history of you, they don't want to know anything else about you, they just like that record. So your record has to be good, and it has to obviously be exposed as well. So with a market with 10,000 tracks coming out, good to be on a label that people are going to look for primarily. Because those labels, even though I've just said people don't follow the labels, there are certain labels, and I'm talking literally a handful, on Beatport especially, that will get recognised. And I don't really want to have to say it like this, but you could put any old crap out on some of these labels and it will do well because they've just built up a good reputation. So that's one way of getting noticed. Like I said, the other way of doing it is to just do it yourself, and I suppose that's a big discussion though. We'll probably cover this more during the talk, but there's a lot. There's a lot of different things you can try and do. We'll get into that a bit later though. But yeah, it's tough.
With you guys covering the Beatport thing, do you mind if I cover the iTunes thing? Because iTunes are great in the respect of what they do. I mean, they're still 80% of my income, do you know what I mean, from all the digital retailers we deal with. The great thing about iTunes is that the storefront is still editorial. So the major labels aren't buying spots on the storefronts and all this sort of stuff. It's still totally editorial. So the iTunes staff pick what goes on there, which is good in one respect but bad in the other. The bad respect is that it's a total bum fight. It's levels the playing field, but it gives even the little guy a chance of getting on the storefront. I mean, we had a free single a week in the USA, which 56,000 people downloaded this track. Do you know what I mean? Which you can't pay for that sort of publicity. So that's the great thing. There was a time when the retailers used to do the same thing. Everything that used to be in the HMV stores and the Virgin stores physically was the choice of the manager or the singles buyer or the album buyer. They used to be able to rack it all out. Then the retailers cottoned on to the fact they could sell this space to the major labels, and as a result all the major labels were buying up all the great spots in the store, and the indie labels weren't getting a look in. But that's the one thing I can say positively about iTunes, is that you do still have that editorial decision there, where good music can rise to the top, and even the little indie bands or even the little indie labels who've just got one guy running it from his bedroom can still get onto the iTunes store if the track's good enough.
Well, I think that's the great thing about the digital revolution, is that anybody can put a record out. I mean, there's no restraints anymore. So, I mean, really, if you do come up with something that is so amazing, chances are it's going to get noticed.
But the downside of that, as you were talking about putting vinyl out, I mean, back in the day, there was a cost, as you say, with CDs. If you wanted to release a CD, you had to have money in your pocket for recording studio, for the actual manufacture and all this sort of thing. You don't need that now. You can do it in your bedroom.
Convince all the shops to buy it from you as well. They have to
shops
take the
stock
units. Now, digital distributors take everything.
Which means that, unfortunately, you've got a massive glut of crap just clogging up the works.
There's very little quality control that goes on with a lot of these digital.
Well, I've got to hold my hands up to that a bit as well. As a digital distributor, there's no A&R process involved in that. With my label, obviously, yes, because I'm going to be putting money into that with PR and all that sort of stuff. But if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, could you put this on iTunes for me? Myself and iTunes and all the digital stores, they've got no A&R filter.
No.
It's only server space, so they just take it all. So I'm a bit responsible for that as well, so I apologise.
Okay, so those statistics of the Beatport weekly sales, I took that off the IMS, the International Music Summit, which is Pete Tong's baby that he does in Ibiza, and it's growing like a conference every year. And some of the other statistics of that was back in the day when we were putting out vinyl using different distributors. There's about 10, 15 distributors that used to, put the vinyls in the white van and get them out to the shops. And they used to amount to about 100 releases a week, something like that. I mean, you worked in Virgin. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
So